It's the same, Dad. Took a shower.
All right. Well, we are officially live here, and the date is June 8th. For anyone that's following along what we're doing, it would mean a lot if you went to our YouTube channel, Rolland Market Mashup, and subscribed. You could watch us there or watch us live on our different Facebook profile pages. And let's dive into it. I mean, last week was one of the best weeks I've ever seen in my life in the market. It seemed like any stock you picked was a winner. We had some great picks on this show, with Sabre being one of them that went up huge, Plug, another one that went up huge, Boeing continues to go up huge. We got up Hewlett Packard, HPQ, which had a dominant day. Looks like it's set to continue gains. And I'm looking over at the TV right now. Looks like the Dow is set to be open over 200 points at open. Bob, I'll throw it to you. What are your thoughts? What are you looking at this morning?
Well, you know, a lot of that move in the Dow is Boeing again. Boeing is up 18 points to start off.
Love it.
Yeah, and the chart looks good now. I mean, it's gotten to the point where you can make a case for it going up to 275. There's a lot of room on the chart. And having said that, if you look at the bank stocks now, a lot of them have gone up against their 200-day moving average. They actually came close or hit it on Friday, and they're all up today. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get through that level, or that's going to be a sticking point. Many times that's a sticking point. So if you do have a lot of bank stocks, it might be a good time to peel some of that off if you have short-term gains. But it's just, same as Friday, same kind of moves, it seems like. Same.
So are you looking at energy again as a hot commodity this week?
I don't know. It's really difficult to say if that's going to continue or not. Right now, everything looks like it's exactly the way it started out Friday, right? The same kind of names are up and the same names are down. The stay-at-home stocks are still for sale. And
let me ask you, how much do you look at what's going on overseas, whether a day session or how it closes, and what do you specifically look for when you're looking at that?
Yeah, I mean, overseas gives the greatest clue to what's going to happen here. You know, starting in Asia last night, what if there was good follow-through from the U.S. market on Friday, and then, of course, Europe right after Asia. And most of the time, the U.S. market will follow what's going on in Europe to a pretty consistent degree, you know, unless there's specific news there that's negative or positive.
Have you already looked at what's going on there?
I haven't looked at a lot this morning. I got up a little later, but it looks like the banks are up again. Credit Suisse is up. Let's see where that is right now.
Yeah, one of the things I've been trying to stay disciplined on is it seems like with everything happening right now, it's easy to get carried away and trying to find the next best thing instead of just riding the obvious waves that are right in front of your face.
Right.
And I think that's important. And that's something that I keep trying to remind myself of. If there's something working, go harder on that. Don't try and find the next sector that might be might have its time in a few days, might not be hot right now, because you don't want to go against momentum is really what I'm getting at here. And I think there's a lot that supports that. If you look at the swings and how people have been moving anything for the last couple months.
Well, that's why I wouldn't get quickly so out of airlines and energy. When you look at how quickly things are opening back up, I even saw in New York, the curfew was lifted a day early. And obviously this phase one is going to turn into an overall opening quickly. Mm-hmm. I think airlines have more room to run here because I think this virus, as we're seeing the uptick, knock on wood, but hasn't happened with all these protests and post-Memorial Day, no upticks have come out. So at this point, I think there's more room to run with the airline short term. So I as do I think energy still has room to run with how beaten down those stocks were, the BPs and the Chevrons. So I'm expecting more there. But the stock guys I'm having my eye on, Dan, I know we talked a lot this weekend about it, is Chewy. I'm looking at how they're acting today. Their earnings are tomorrow, and I'm planning on going hard in the paint going into earnings on Chewy unless it's breaking through its all-time 52-week highs today.
So I want to get to that in a second. Have you guys looked at Sabre this morning?
Yeah.
Set to open up 30%. Gotcha. Well, yeah, that seems like a less obvious play to tag along with the airlines that I saw they just went into a 10-year deal with Google. I don't know much about this company until last week. I picked some up, but this morning I spent about an hour just looking into them because at this point I own a decent amount and I wanted to see what they were all about. It seems like it's this fly under the radar company that's got a lot of good things going on. So I was licking my chops this morning. I mean, I'm looking at this thing. It looks like it's trying to be up huge at the open. It's been fluctuating a little, but not much,
it's trading at right around 12, right?
I shouldn't have sold that. That was fucking retarded.
Well, no, I mean, look, I wouldn't say that, but getting the short-term gain in and out, it's not like I didn't make money on it. Who knows that these things are going to go up 60% in 3 days? It's crazy. Mike, are you looking for something?
Anything. That's what I've realized. Like, I don't like any loss, whether it's getting out of something too early or not. It's a loss is a loss.
Just to go back for a second, you guys mentioned Chevron, which we were real bullish on last week. If you look at the chart on some of these stocks, they are getting up against their 200-day moving average, like I said earlier. And Chevron is one of them. You get up to that 105 area, and you're going to run into some resistance.
That's why I have a sell order at 105. I'm getting in and out of that thing.
I don't think it's a straight line up for a stock like that. Now, the airlines do look like they have room, but I'd be cautious because they were so oversold when they went down big, and now they're at the point of insanity on the way up. But it does look like.
Yeah, but everyone keeps saying be cautious with the airlines. It makes me like them more. Honestly, all I've heard is be cautious with airlines. And I think they're a good buy.
Yeah. Well, Sabre is a good way. Sabre is a good way to play it through the back door. But if they do start to go down, I'd be surprised if Sabre would stay up. That would be a tough one, I would think, short term.
Have you looked into how sustainable some of the dividends are on the energy stocks? Like looking at BP this morning, which I own a lot of, I see their dividend now is at 10%. Do you think that's sustainable?
Well, BP, one of their motives is to keep the dividend, and they actually raised the dividend in the first quarter. So is it sustainable? Not when oil was way down, but oil's come all the way back. And right now, I think it's got a better chance to keep the dividend. Chevron's is pretty stable. I don't think they're going to be doing anything with it. But even if they cut the dividend, it would still be, they wouldn't take a lot of it away if they did that.
Because these are pretty massive dividends. I mean, it makes me want to be pretty.
They are, and it's easy to go into a stock saying, wow, 9%, 10%. But that's usually a red flag. I think BP will try everything to hold the dividend up. They've been selling a lot of parts of their company off to get in a better situation. And, the stock's come a long way from the bottom, but it could easily get back up into the 30s in a normal situation.
So let's talk about Chewy a little bit. Mike, I know you've been talking about them for a while. They do have their earnings tomorrow. Hello? Yeah, we're here.
Dan, you.
Dad, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I can hear Dan.
Mike, maybe X out and come back in then.
While Mike's out, we'll get back to Chewy. I was going to mention, because we've talked about Zillow, Mike has always liked that stock. They got a buy recommendation today from Needham with an $80 price target. Stock's up $2.50 pre-market.
Well, I'm not in it at the moment. I cashed out of my option last week because I made too much money short term to not. It was already almost.
Well, there's nothing wrong with taking profits. Now, what about Chewy?
Chewy, my guess is they are. I've heard enough talk and seen it on the streets with these boxes everywhere. Some woman the other day saying dogs are the new toilet paper. Everyone needs one and they're all sold out. That's enough for me. If they're not going through the roof today, which I don't expect, I'm going hard on Chewy tomorrow. I think they're going to be trading at $60 right after earnings. They're going to have a massive blowout. I think I was telling Dan, you see there's some shorts on the stock. My guess is there's some distaste from the pets.com investor days still, where there's still some what ifs with that company. And all I see is a grand slam there. I think they are going to have an absolute run up after earnings of a quick 15-20%. So that's my hard pick of the week. I'm going to be getting very aggressive on Chewy tomorrow morning.
See, what I'm looking at with Chewy is I think there's
still can't hear Dan. I don't know what's going on here.
I could hear him fine.
Yeah, so I think there's three things going on here with Chewy. One, I think it's very obvious that everyone knows they're gonna really blow it out of the water with their revenues. Two, I think they're gonna lose a lot of money this quarter, probably more than what people expect. And then three, it seems like the market is somewhat exhausted from those names in general. So it'll be kind of interesting to see, because I think Mike's right. They're going to have a huge quarter when it comes to revenues. I think they're going to have a big profit miss, which they've been coming out and being pretty open about. And then it'll be interesting to see, because these are not the hot names right now. And Chewy has kind of flown under the radar a little the last 2 weeks. But that's what I'm interested to see, is how the big money will respond to the fact that Chewy will probably have a big revenue beat, but a bigger loss in profits.
I don't think the loss will be nearly as big as people expect. That's why I think that company is set up for absolute dominance ahead here. Like, pets are at an all-time high on a whole nother level of people buying them. And like, people can't find dogs from breeders right now. I just don't see where they're going to be missing anything. I'd be utterly shocked. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm gambling.
Well, they did say how, because of how busy they are, running into supply chain issues, and because of that, they're burning more money trying to just provide, get the orders out. So again, I think they are going to have a big quarter with revenues. I think they will lose money, and then it just boils down to they're coming out with earnings in a time when people are moving to the more cynical names, more energy-related names, and moving away from those names.
Go through the roof. I think that's all anyone's going to care about, is how many new customers do they have. That's a company like that. That's what I'm looking at, is any institutional money.
And I did see they got some sort of upgrade this morning. I mean, they're set to be up about $1 at open here. So, they might already start that run going into earnings.
Yeah, it might be time to buy them right now, honestly. I don't know. I just don't want to see too much of a run up going into tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say when you look at the chart on this thing. To me, I wouldn't touch it until it gets down into the mid-40s, and then really think twice. It's had a huge move, this stock. So
it's had a huge move. Could one of those companies that sells off big earnings, kind of like Slack did. Seeing what happened with Slack makes me hesitant with all of these quote unquote stay-at-home names. Even though I know Chewy is more than a stay-at-home name, it seems like a company where people are waiting for the earnings and then they sell just to take advantage of the basically 150% run up it's had since, in the last few months alone. But it'll be interesting to see. There's not about it. Are there other names you guys are looking at?
Yeah, I have an interesting one for you guys. This is a very, we're talking a speculative on crack, but it's going to be an absolute grand slam here with where healthcare is going. I'm pulling up the ticker.
Looks like the ticker pulled him up.
SH something. We're going to have to looking to Mike's internet connection. Tell you, while he's figuring that out, a stock that's come way off of its highs for someone looking to get in, that's a hot name. I don't know if it's done going down, but Shopify, that stock moves around so much. I mean, quickly went above 800. Now it's back to like 730. Long term, I was listening to their CEO on an interview the other day. I mean, I think that long term, they're golden. Term, they are all over the place. I'm about Shopify.
What, SHRMF?
No, Shop.
No, we didn't hear you.
Huh?
No, you have to give us the name, Mike. We've only got the first two.
SHRMF.
SHRNF.
So the
That
F.
is my home run. I will be buying today about $5,000 worth of that and closing my eyes and opening them in about 3 years. And it's going to be to the moon. I'm telling you right now, that stock, like there's a couple in that space I've been monitoring. That's at the forefront. That will be the next wave of healthcare. I promise you guys.
What do they do?
And they're psychedelics. They're at the forefront of psychedelic research for mental health, for PTSD, for depression. We're heading away from pills and into psychedelics, which should have been done a long time ago. Obviously, Big Pharma has prevented that. Now Silicon Valley and Tim Ferriss have been pushing this hard, and it's coming. We're going to start seeing this narrative with cannabis. This and cannabis, guys, are the two home run growth stories next, guaranteed. So we need to be at the forefront of that.
You know, whenever there's an F at the end of a stock, that means it's a Canadian stock. And I don't know if this trades in Toronto or Vancouver, but it's always something to keep in mind when it comes out of Vancouver. That's a scary.
Well, I'm pumped to take a trip up there. So.
Yeah, but Vancouver is notorious for stocks that are pump and dumps.
I don't see this being a pump and dump, Dad.
I don't know. This may be Toronto. I don't know. I'm just telling you.
Either way, this is. I can assure you, this whole movement has not really picked up steam yet. It's about to, for good reason. It's going to be game changing for the world. So, this in cannabis, if people want to make a fortune and get in the penny stocks now, I highly suggest throw $20-$50 in there just to get started.
So it is obviously something we've always looked out for when markets run high, is that like euphoria stage. And to me, it feels like we've been in that for a little bit now. And that's when normally I kick myself, because you get that feeling where it's like I should really start selling a lot, which I've been gradually doing. But it seems like there's also a case for the market to go way higher just because we're in these uncharted times with everything going on. How are you looking at that, Dad?
Well, I think that there's been great rotation going on, and it gives me hope that the market is not in that. I think parts of the market are in that phase where you get those euphoric situations, and there are a lot of penny stocks that have entered that. But the idea that it's kind of moved around, they went from the stay-at-home stocks to the bank stocks to the deep cyclical, and those stocks are still moving, and money is definitely going in those areas. And there's a long way to go when you look at the charts on a lot of those names. Not so much the banks now, but the deep cyclicals still have a ways to go. So I'm not so sure that we've gotten to that euphoric, anything you buy goes up. They're really pick and choose here. I mean, they're being really careful on what they're looking at, away from the dollar stocks.
And to add to that, if you look at the Robinhood type apps and you look at the names that speculative type traders are piling into, it's not necessarily the best names on the stock market. It's names that a lot of people would never touch. And that almost makes me feel good. It'd be one thing if you had everyone piling into Microsoft and Amazon and the names that, have got us here for the last 4 years, 5 years, and that I think will continue to be the hot names if things do start to get more volatile. But when I see all these traders from Robinhood piling into, speculative names, whether it's, a lot of the airlines, which at this point aren't really speculative, but not the names that are just home run stocks and have been for years. And that kind of makes me feel good about those stories. Like I think Amazon, Microsoft, the really, really big cap names have been kind of held back during these rotations. And at some point, I'm looking to have most of my money back in those types of names just because I feel like I could sleep at night when I have my money in Microsoft a lot more than when I have my money in a stock like Sabre.
And with that, can you talk about the weakness of the dollar? Being the last over a week now, is there anything we could buy into off that?
Well, I mean, the weakness of the dollar is generally very good for stocks because it makes us more competitive overseas. So,
but what are you looking at more than anything with that trend now being 8 days strong? Is there
I'm not looking at that as a trend yet. I think it's something that was long overdue, and it's good for the stock market short term. That starts picking up steam. Then I think people are going to be concerned about is the money leaving the United States? Is that bad?
And with it leaving the United States, like back to the Vancouver pump and dump thing, what makes a company in Canada necessarily kind of, in your head, a bit precarious when it comes to pump and dump?
Well, I mean, historically, Vancouver was a place where a lot of IPOs were formed and a lot of shell companies that didn't even have a company. They would just start one. And then the brokerage firms up there would start throwing out a story about a company, and it would run up from 50 cents to $1. And then people in the United States would hear about it. It would go to $2. Meanwhile, these guys in Vancouver are selling every share they could. So it was a shady business for a long time. I'm sure it's gotten better, but I think the rules were loose up there to be able to, start companies and whatnot. And that's why Vancouver was notorious. I don't know where this company is that you're talking about.
I mean, it's the company I'm talking about is still, it's in its infancy, obviously.
Right.
This is not a commonplace thing when people are taking psychedelics for mental health. But when that happens, that's going to be a nice situation. I have one for you guys to look at based on, I've been monitoring the last few days, NVEE. Check out. N as in Nick, V as in violin, EE. It's this basically with this infrastructure bill that could be brewing, that if that happens, this thing goes to the moon. Even if it doesn't happen, it seems like the chart's setting up for a nice growth stretch here in the months ahead.
Did you say M as in Mary, Mike, or
no? N as in Nick. NVEE.
Okay.
Thought you guys would find that one interesting. I was thinking about getting into that today.
You know, a rule of thumb I usually have with myself is I don't mess with companies that are not in the billions in the market caps because I don't trust them. They're so all over the place. Like I like companies that have pretty nice sized market caps that seem to have fallen off the grid because those are companies that seem to act with more rhyme and reason.
Well, this is not all over the place at all.
So one name you guys will remember that I've been looking at again and bought a little more is Vimpelcom. I don't know if you remember Vion, VEON.
Oh yeah, I own
Vion, the Russian internet company.
Yeah, Vion used to be known as Vimpelcom in the U.S. The symbol was VIP, and they changed it to Vion, VEON, and it's a Russian.
Yeah, how could Dan and I forget that one?
I didn't think you could. It's a Russian cellular company, and it started to break out on the charts early last week, and it looks like it's got a little bit of room in it. It trades millions and millions of shares. It's a real company, and they pay a huge dividend. Part of their
isn't that Alex Greenberg stock?
It is. It is. But I haven't spoken to Alex in a long time. But Vion looks interesting to me. And another one that someone mentioned to me that I looked at and I think has room on the chart is CIR, the symbol. And
Z or C?
C is in circle. And it's
CIR.
It's called Circor, and they're involved they're involved in defense contracts. They make couplings for pipes, like a weird, a lot of machinery type stuff. So it's another cyclical with a defense idea behind them. But that started breaking out hard on Friday, and it probably has a room to go. It was up like 13% on Friday.
It looks like it's going to be
How about
another.
NVEE? You didn't give me your thoughts on that.
Which one?
NVEE.
Let me look at the chart.
While Dad looks at the chart, it looks like the CIR company you were just talking about is set to open up huge today, 16-17%. Same with Vion. Yeah, I mean, Vion.
So what are
was
the thoughts on that? Like buying into that type of strength when a company is up like that in a day, is that a no bueno type of thing?
I've done it and it works. You usually do better than if it's down that kind of percentage.
Well, of course, but how much more wind in that sails can you get when a stock's opening at 16% when you're trying to jump on at the open?
Well, when I look at Vion, I think it can get to 190. So there's plenty of room there. 180.
What's it trading at?
It looks like 175.
Wait, Vion $175?
No, $1.75.
I was gonna say, what happened to that company?
Well, it was
for
a week, Mike.
But it was.
No, I remember being in that. Wasn't it in the $4 or $5 range?
It was.
It was.
Yeah. But
keep in mind, they pay between 15 and 22% dividend. So it comes down as they pay out the dividend. But it was because I still own a decent amount of it. And for the last few months, it was kind of stuck at 150. And that's right. I mean, the last couple of weeks, every single day, it's been trending up. It's clearly broke out of that 150 range. Obviously, look, we didn't have the best experience. We went somewhat hard on Vion when it was like $3 higher. But when you do factor in the dividend, I'm basically even on that stock. I might even be up a little if you factor in the dividend, which is tough.
I guess it's time to go hard. Buying hard on Vion today.
I wouldn't go hard on it. I would just keep it a little bit on the books and monitor it. And
that's not how I operate. Then I'm not buying any.
The CR company, though, look, that their chart to me looks like it's got a ton of room to go, like
Which
above
one?
30.
CIR.
The CIR. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's well off its lows. But if
How
you
about
look at
NVEA?
Yeah, I'm looking at that, but I would say CIR has upside to 32-ish, when you look at the chart. And
which is huge.
Yeah, MVEE looks like it's right up against its 200-day average, so you want to see it get through there comfortably because it's.
And if they do, though, Dad, doesn't that thing have some room to run?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of resistance in this thing as you move up, but
there's also a ton of upside, though, with the narrative. If we actually have an infrastructure bill, which needs to happen in this country, they're a huge winner.
Yeah, I mean, 55 is a tough level to get through. If you get through there, then you can probably see the stock, every $5 it runs into stuff.
That's going to 90 to 100 at some point.
Maybe.
All right, let's do our trades of the day here. I'll start. I'm sticking with HPQ. I brought them up on Friday. They went big. I'm going to just ride that out. I might even buy more. So HPQ, Hewlett Packard.
Yeah, that acts well. Mike?
I'm actually looking at CVS today. I think I've been using them a lot. There's one right down the street. I think them owning Aetna and the combination of the convenience items with that in healthcare. I think they are a major winner, and I find it hard to believe. I know they had to close some stores for a few days with the riots, but overall, I think they are in for a nice stretch here. So I'm looking at CVS this morning as a good entry point.
Yeah, and I'll stick with the names that we've been in. I still like Alcoa. It's up another 60 cents pre-market. I like Sabre, but I'm peeling off stock every day from when we bought it because it's had such a big move. And I'm going to buy some of the CIR today. I think this looks interesting.
I'm going to try that.
I'd be cautious. I'd be real cautious on the banks. I think they're running into a level that's hard to get through short term. I
So,
think
Dad, real quick before we hop off here, I know our time's up. And you're gonna buy CIR, and like I said, it looks like it's set to open up pretty big here. Maybe not as big as it was a minute ago. Is there a price target that you're trying to buy it at? Like if it opens up 15%, or are you gonna try and buy a pre-market?
I'm gonna try to buy some now if I can get some. Or I mean, they have a wide bid offer in the pre-market. I'll probably put like a 23 and a quarter limit on it and see if I can.
And where's your sell there? What's your ceiling on that?
Well,
sell?
I think this thing can run to 32. I don't know if that is quickly or.
So maybe I should just put all my money into Circle and kind of just see what
You
happens.
could also go back down to 13. So you got to watch what's happening. But, you know, I would not pay through the roof on this thing. That's for sure.
Well, guys, watch out for Chewy. Dan, get young man rocking here. I want to see you purchase something before I'm going ham on that stock later.
All right.
And I'm still playing short Zoom, by the way. It's down.
Still short Zoom?
Yeah.
Which seems to be panning out well for you. So good call on Zoom.
It moves.
You've been full of good calls, and it's one thing to call stocks that are going up when the market's been going up every day, but to short one of the hottest stocks in the game and be right. I mean, come on.
No.
Little clap for Bob Rolland right there. All right. See you later.
Bye-bye.